See if Pax can. She's just laying there for now. Hopefully she doesn't get washing. Hello, good morning, Jax. How are you today?
I am so good, Wendy. How are you today?
Good. I'm excited that we both see each other's shoulders. Look at that. It's
Right.
getting there.
So close. If you followed this podcast, we joked about it the last 12 episodes that, like, does summer ever exist? And look at that. The shoulders are out, the skies are blue, weather's warming up.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, we do discuss that quite a bit, but it's because we're so eager and we're so excited.
I'm a summer
And then
person through and through, so
yeah.
getting through that winter feels longer every year. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, this one did seem to drag on quite a bit. I think it did. It did. But it is episode 13. Lucky 13. Look at us.
13. There will be no more returns of Bob. I was laughing about that last one. Frickin' Bob. The end of Bob.
Oh,
We'll end it there.
I think that was pretty awesome.
Um, the end of Bob. So this episode 13. Gosh, I mean, this might be one of the last episode. Well, this is the last episode from the Grand Falls house. As Sunday, I'm taking off for my book tour for cancer research. And Wendy and I are gonna have to figure it out on the fly. I think we should be able to still swing podcast episodes because if I start a book tour venue around noon-ish, that still gives us time in the morning to meet up. Obviously, as hopefully as I get further west, because if we try that when I'm still in Newfoundland and it's like 9 a.m. in Newfoundland, that's what, like 5:30 for you, Wendy? So,
Well, my alarm does go off at 5:15 every morning.
oh my
Like
God.
during the week anyways. And so that like sitting down having my coffee time can totally be
Okay.
sitting here with you. We will make it work however it looks. And if there's times we can't, that's all right. We've important journey ahead.
Hey, well, that's good to know. I definitely could not roll out of bed and start a podcast. But if you have that ability, all the power to you. I would love to, we want to keep these episodes going. It will be cool just to see. I mean, I love the podcast because it's almost like it's its own entity. And so we have its own viewers from your realm and my realm. And so obviously, you were a big part of the marathon, and hopefully, you'll be a big part of the book tour. And it's going to be just its own little fun little nook that
Yeah,
some people can tune into and really get some more behind the scenes of the whole book tour and just both of us as the whole journey goes on.
absolutely. So yeah, we'll just you guys keep an eye on the episodes. I think we can try and put updates in the Facebook group, right? It just might
Mhm.
look a little different moving forward, but we've all got nothing we can't all handle, right? Time to bring that expression back because you're hitting the road again, but we are episode 13. So yeah, welcome to putting the feel back in Tuesday, you guys. I love it. Another week.
Another week, brand new week, good feels, good vibes. Hope
Yep.
everyone had a great week leading up to this episode.
Yeah.
And we'll see what kind of mischief we can get into today.
There's
So
always mischief. Always.
maybe I'll introduce this podcast this time just to
Oh,
change things up a bit for the listeners. So, like
yeah.
Wendy said, we are putting the feel back in Tuesday, a podcast based around good vibes, good feels, self-improvement, mindfulness, just basically reconnecting with ourselves to live a better, more positive, happier life with a
Yeah.
lot less negativity and grim. So, without further ado, I know we've said that like 8 times. I think just excited to be back here for another episode. It's always great to reconnect.
It is.
So, Wendy, what has put the feel back into your Tuesday this week?
Well, sort of lots, going on. First, like excitement. I got uh a Brunswick hoodie in the mail. So that was exciting this week. I got that. video to fall. Super fun. It's so comfy. I love it. And it's just a great kickoff for the like, yes, look, it's coming. Brunswick's big adventure. So I'm really excited, for this journey and getting the hoodie. Like, what a week to get that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And I mean, I'm just so grateful. People keep ordering hoodies and we keep making them
Mm,
and sending them out. So I'm
yeah.
one thing I never expected was like, obviously when I left, I had the stroller and the sign. And then when we made it to Ontario, we had Precision, so we got those hoodies. And
Yes.
as I got further out west, of course, people started getting them in the mail. So I started seeing people wearing sweatshirts with
Mhm.
what Rob and I designed. So it's like you almost need like a second look because it's like, wait a minute, like we
Yeah.
created that. And gosh, it's gonna be like it's just unbelievable when I go out there and then hopefully I'll see some people wearing their Brunswick hoodies and the Let's Find Akira hoodies and yeah, like it's just
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be able to wrap my mind around this era of my life where people are just backing me and my cause
Mm,
so passionately and it's just so weird to be the person behind the cause and obviously they're
mm,
backing me because I'm backing a cause important to a lot of our hearts, of course, cancer
right.
research,
Yep.
but it's just still unbelievable. I mean, yeah, that was just kind of a spin-off, but
Yeah.
gosh, it's just I'm just a guy, I got everyone, so I appreciate everyone's kindness and support, but that's just what Canada's all about. We're all just supportive, amazing people, and I've really felt the power of our nation.
Yeah. And that was another thing. I mean, not only, I know I've said it before on the podcast that there's just like, as soon as I seen you when I swiped up and listened for a little bit, there was a vibe for sure. You're like, okay, this guy's got a vibe. Like it, but it really quickly, you could see that people coming together, like the coffee 2 seconds later, and that was sort of fresh coming off. I mean, whether or not people are exhausted of the topic or not, that was sort of fresh coming off of the country being fairly divided with COVID and all the like craziness. And so it was also hope of, oh well, look at this, look at these people coming together, and look at these people chatting about positive things, and it really did stand out to me, the like, Canada, let's that part too, not just for cancer, not just who you are. It was like, look at us Canadians killing it.
That's seriously, and I love watching this round of people, and Canada's still going strong for the cross Canada travelers. It's like obviously Terry Fox set the whole vibe, as you could say, for like traveling across this country on foot. It's for Canadians, it's always going to be extra special and extra cool because if you look into the States, obviously it is a smaller. It's like
Yeah.
5,000 kilometers coast to coast, where Canada is like 7,300. So you
Yep.
do have a bit more, but people are constantly doing walks across the USA and runs across the USA, and they're
Yep.
just, I mean, maybe if we were there, we would hear more about it, but I'm going to say it's into the hundreds or the thousands who have completed that across the USA,
Mm,
where
yeah.
it's like 17 now across Canada.
Mm,
So, I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe it's just more redundancy, you don't hear it, but seems
yeah.
like whenever someone does it in Canada, everyone is like, "Let's go." It's cool.
There's the big, yeah, the rally. I love it, the rally of support. Yeah, so there was that sort of excitement. There was a celebration of life for a friend of mine that passed away in December over the weekend, and it was at the zoo. So that was kind of nice too. Of course, a celebration of life will have its up and downs. Um, but it's always nice. I love a good slideshow, showing the person's life going through, and um, I know his brother and am close with his brother. And I hadn't seen his mom in like, wait, how old am I? Let me do the math. Like 30 years. Like
Oh,
it had been
big.
so, and those were literally the only two people I knew there. But I went, I did good, and it was great to sort of catch up with them. And then there's sort of a bench been dedicated to him in like there's a butterfly conservatory in the Calgary Zoo. So you
Wow.
like go in there with all these like plants and everything, and the butterflies are just flying around. So it was nice to go in there and see the bench and sit there with it for a couple of minutes and then head out. So yeah, that was nice too. It was outside and
Oh wow. Well,
you
sorry
know,
for your loss, Wendy.
oh,
That's
thank you.
that's not nice, but that is the perfect place to have yourself a memoriam bench. It's
Yeah,
just butterflies, such good vibes. I mean, maybe today's episode's all around vibes, but
yeah,
butterflies do have a good vibe to them. Just seeing them make you feel like, that caterpillar to the cocoon to the beautiful
yeah.
butterfly, and they're an inspiring insect to say the
And
least.
like the whole building is like a little rainforesty, and the you have to walk through those like overlapping curtains kind of thing so the butterflies don't get out. And the second you walk through there, you're like it's so humid in there. So because you're a little sweaty and sticky, like they're just landing on. Like if you sit there quiet and don't move, like I have this picture of Spencer, and it's surprising because he was so young. I 6, maybe 5, and he like stood there with his arms out for like a long time, dead still, a kid that age, and one landed on each of his. Oh Lord. So it's kind of a fun, nice place. And they had the bench roped off just for the day so the public didn't sit on it so the people could, go and do their thing. So yeah, that was lovely. And so just to sort of know that next time you go to the zoo, you'll be able to go and say hi. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was nice. I got outside and I wanted to go visit the penguins, but the enclosure was closed. That was the only like
How did how did it manage to end up at the zoo? Like that's such a cool but interesting venue for a celebration. I guess it's not a funeral, right? So there's not like a casket there in the
Well,
butterfly.
there's a lodge that you can like rent out for events.
Okay.
Usually there's banquets and stuff like that in there. So the room was just sort of set up with the round tables and the podium up front. Um, Mark really enjoyed going there with his kids and being out there and a little adventure. And his brother also like sort of holds a contract doing some electrician if I understand right with the zoo. So he was able to sort of get in there as well, which is great to, have that sort of little spot. So that was good too. That was nice to get outside
Yeah,
and
sounds
go
like
and do that.
obviously celebrations of life are never something you want to celebrate someone's
Right.
life, but it
Yeah.
sounds like for that circumstance, it couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was a nice, you know, yeah, it was nice. It was good. And the few animals that I've seen that were out, our newest members are the polar bears, but that lineup was like no, because as long as you were there for the celebration, you didn't have to pay to get in, so you were welcome to enjoy the zoo. But it was closing near the time it ended, and so I'm like, I'm not going to stand in that line. But yeah, it had been a while since I've been there. We used to have the place memorized. I mean, when Spencer was little, we had a membership, and it's just like,
Okay.
but it had been since the pandas were there that I had been there, so it was nice to sort of go back and hang a bit.
Are they gone, the pandas? Are they
Oh,
extinct?
oh yes, yes, and yes. They are gone. They were supposed to stay with us for quite a while, but when COVID hit, they had trouble keeping up and transporting with the bamboo,
Okay.
so they had to go. It was, how everybody like during the beginning of COVID, it was emotional and people were freaking out, and I never really had that moment at the beginning, but like whatever month it was, like mid to end of April, they posted an article announcing that the pandas had to go. And there was a panda like in mid doing something. He was probably just about to scratch or something, but it looked like he was waving, and they were announcing that they had to send the pandas away. That
Um,
is the moment that broke me during COVID,
I
Jax.
bet.
I was like,
Finally sunk in.
oh. But I did get to go see them, so that was good.
Nice. Well, you know, I don't know about everyone else, but almost like during the COVID time, I was still working at the
Yeah.
care home, but everyone in my family wasn't, and all my friends weren't, and a lot of
Mm,
people were at home just collecting their CERB. Part of me just kind of misses that time where it was just like, obviously you had the bubbles and you couldn't really see anyone, but there was just a simplicity to that time where you were everyone was kind of like on a global pause where it's like, we're gonna give you some money because we don't know what's going on and just wait for us to figure it out. And so, and they were giving out, what was it, 1,300 every 2 weeks, or was that every month?
uh, was it every 2 weeks, or maybe it was a month, or maybe it depended on I can't remember. Yeah.
Like, like that's a lot of money to get for free. So
It
people
is,
were really just, I think it's like a free vacation for the whole nation.
yeah.
There was a nice, like that 2 weeks to slow the curve. In that
Yeah.
2 weeks, there was a nice, roads were empty. I didn't
Yes.
feel as much panic, maybe. I don't know, but it was a cool, interesting, cool time where I don't think we'll see again until another 100 years.
Yeah, I agree. There was the downness of it was like it was quiet, it was calm, even though it was sort of panicky for some people and panicky around and oh Lord, is there a cure? And look at all the amount of people dying, and there was a panic to it, but your everyday there was calm. And I did notice that too. And I mean, even the like this, I don't remember the numbers anymore, but like the huge cities with pollution that like the percentage went down because no one was working. Those factories weren't running. The smoke wasn't the like clean air in some of these cities for a while. So just those kind of things were pretty
Yes.
wild to hear about during COVID. You sort of don't think about that every day necessarily sometimes. And so it was just like, wow.
It makes you think because, like, human beings aren't meant to just be worked to the bone like that. And clearly,
Mm,
there was a way for the world still to function with no one, contributing every day to whatever they do. It's almost like we should have like an annual, I mean, I guess they give us like a week, or not a week, like a day. You get this day off, a Monday, and you get your 3 day long weekend. But
yeah.
there should be almost like an annual 2 week. If you're a frontline worker, maybe you get like time and a half,
Mm,
something. But then uh just humans need that reset. We're not meant to just be pushed to our very limits until the day we end up at our own celebration of life.
yeah. Yeah, agreed. And it definitely taught the world how we can do things differently for sure, even with communication and online things. And maybe you don't need to be in meetings, and whether or not the newscaster's daughter wanders in the middle of his Zoom newscast doesn't really matter, does it? Like it sort of taught us that, yeah, okay, that's funny that it happens, but the world didn't end. Like it's all good. Like,
It did end up
so
with some like divide, not to get political, because then you have the
yes.
people who are like, anti-vax when it
Yeah.
comes to COVID, and then you got people who are like, give me 7 boosters, and then there was no like meet in the middle. I mean, I lived in a home with a immunocompromised person, so it's
Mm,
definitely more to think about when you're in a house
yes.
like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, luckily everyone I knew got out okay, but I
Mm,
definitely know some people close to me that lost family members because it's not just the COVID itself. You go to the hospital and then you're getting treated for your COVID, and then maybe you get pneumonia because you're around everyone else, and yeah, and then it's so busy because of the time it was, and it's maybe not been the COVID that's the kicker, but it's everything that comes around it after.
yeah, absolutely. There can certainly be a lot, COVID or not. Sometimes being in the hospital is like, "Ooh, ee."
And then
um, yeah.
we had, I don't know if it goes into FIA, but there was the person who was the director of care for our care facility. Her mom lived in the facility as well, and then
Mm,
her mom passed away from anaphylactic shock from taking the vaccine. Like, so it's a tough thing when it comes to like medical issues because everyone is so different, and there's
yeah.
not just like a one solution fits all. So
Correct.
Yeah,
I I know that's totally true. It's so much to the pile, right? So much.
yeah.
Um,
It's like
yeah.
it's an onion, that whole issue. It's very layered and complex. Like same thing with cancer, the same thing I advocate for. I think people want to try to make an issue as small as possible so that they can make sense of it, kind of make something a yes or no answer, when
Mhm.
just so that you can be like, hey, well, then this makes sense to me, when it could have 2,000 answers, and then that's overwhelming, and then you don't want to think that something needs 2,000 solutions, and then yeah, it's a whole can of worms.
It is, and it's a big can, like it sure can be. So that was basically my week, just that kind of stuff going on. What's been putting the feel back in your Tuesday this week? I'm sure a lot. You're
Yeah.
prepping.
um well, we did our baby shower on Sunday, which was so much fun. I hadn't done a live really since the raffle on March the 4th, on the 1 year anniversary of my Cross Canada Marathon. So it was awesome. I mean, 20,000 people ended up watching just after you
Oh
can
wow!
see the analytics. So there was
Oh yeah!
20,000 people that ended up watching, and there was around 500 concurrent people. But I'm not a big numbers guy. I'm, but the only reason I mention that is because it just gives me so much like hope for the book tour that 500 people will tune in for a baby shower. Maybe hopefully even half of those will tune
Yeah,
in for the book tour. And it's
yeah,
just such a ripple effect. Like you need everyone around you. Like there's so much I learned from doing the first one. As you're going through, you're like, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? All these people commenting, like you kind of learn what it means as you go, and then you realize after, like how much everyone around you supporting you, spreading it to other people, telling other people, like it's so huge. I'm just one cog in the system, but there's a huge system, and just to see that many people, I mean, obviously some people are just nosy and they're like, oh, what did people send them and stuff like that. But from the most part, from what I understand and all the people I met and connected with, and everyone who was there, I saw so many familiar faces in the chat, which is another cool thing. A year later, seeing like, gosh, at least 100 people now, I recognize their names and excited to
yeah.
see. So it's super cool. So that means that Friday, I get to finally pick up my book, which there is a little bit of stress around that because it's not in my hands. I've been promised and guaranteed they will be ready Friday, but you know how businesses work. They're not on the weekends. So if I show up Friday and they're like, it's not ready till Monday, that kind of screws everything. Um,
Mm,
so, but I'm gonna take their word for it. It'll be ready Friday, but obviously, when that is out of my control, there's nothing I can really do.
yeah,
So, yeah, I'm hoping it'll be ready for Friday, and then the vehicle I'm taking is ready. Eldon. So this, I'm gonna get into a long story here. A lot of you listening
right.
might already know it. So when I was going across Canada, I met this man. His name was Eldon. His brother Tom owns abatement and remediation and construction company called
Yeah.
T&L Abatement and Remediation Incorporated. And Eldon is Tom's brother, and Eldon obviously they work hand in hand at this company. So I was going across Canada, and Eldon drives by, and he's a very peculiar fellow. He's a character. I love it. And he came to the side of the road, and his wife was like, "Don't bother him, don't bother him." And I was fully welcome anyone to come to the side of the road. And then so he dropped his wife off, and the next day he was alone. So he stopped to find me, and he brought me like um farmer. What's that? Mary Brown's.
Oh, Mary Brown's chicken.
Yeah, he brought me two chicken sandwiches and a huge thing of Timbits, and we got to talking. And yeah, he's been personally affected in his family with cancer. They lost like a 8-year-old in their family. So
Okay.
he was very inspired by the cause, found me on the side of the road, and knowing him now, it's kind of funny. He was like trying to get me to get in his car to go like to drive me up the road because he wanted to see if I would cheat or not. And so I met Eldon, and he wanted to just help as much as he could, and that he did.
Mm,
Turns out, I keep going up the road and I'm talking about TNL this, TNL that, because they gave me hoodies and hats, and um,
mhm,
they were going to
mhm,
buy me running shoes, and they were just helping out so much. And then Bailey, who's my now partner, was in the chat and was like, "Oh my gosh, TNL," because she was in the area just scrolling through and heard me say TNL. She's like,
mhm.
"Oh my gosh, that's my family's company." I was like, "What?" And come to find out that Eldon is Bailey's step grandpa. So Bailey's stepdad, John,
Yes.
his dad is Eldon. So, and Bailey's stepdad, I mean, she grew up with him her whole life. So it's Bailey's step grandpa, whatever. And then I ended up meeting Eldon, get with Bailey, all this stuff. And then now come a whole year later, Eldon's kindness is continuing to go and helping me with this cause. He set up a whole, because my van burnt down, Marianne, I had a 1985 Volkswagen van, which we took on the journey. We drove her into the grave, probably, but it is what it is. And so Eldon set me up a whole van. He put a mattress in the back. Like he actually took it very seriously and made me a very comfortable living space to go across the country. So
Perfect.
that's done. So the book gets picked up Friday, the vehicle's ready, and then Sunday I leave. And I have my ferry tickets booked already. So Sunday morning I'll take off to the ferry, then I'll ride it through the night. Wake up 7:30 is when you get off the boat, and I'm hopefully gonna go to Whitburn, where I met my first person that was just so amazing, Keith, as it'll only be April the 29th. So hopefully I'll get to spend some time with Keith. And
Okay.
then the next day will be May 1st, and that'll be my first kind of venue and setup for hosting my book tour. I came to the conclusion that I'm going to be doing a lot of public parks
Okay.
just because I was trying to connect with a lot of local businesses across Canada, and it almost seems like, well, it is, I would be, a lot of these business owners were more like, I feel like they thought maybe I was kind of trying to poach customers where like I needed
Mm,
spot to have foot traffic in order to make some sales. So a lot of them didn't seem too keen for it. And then
okay.
a lot of other people, yeah, just that was the thing. It just didn't seem like a lot of people were too interested, which was fine. Um, so that's why I was like, you know what? I don't feel like I need those venues. Where I was coming from is I wanted local businesses to collaborate. So it's like I want to show off how amazing you and your business are and how kind you are. And maybe people in the area will be like, oh, I never knew of this business, but this business owner is so kind. I want to go support them. That's kind of that was the angle I was taking it. But which is I don't think like I'm anyone big. No one really heard of my journey or knew who I was, so I don't think they
Oh,
felt like they were losing out on much, which is, fine. They probably aren't losing out on much, but it just felt like too much of a bat. It didn't feel like it was in the universe yet. Maybe after this tour or a couple more initiatives and maybe my name gets out there more for the cause I'm championing, then people will be like, oh, then maybe people will be calling me asking me to go to their venues. But this time around, it was just more worth work than what it was worth to try
mm,
and get these venues where I was like, and then it kind of dawned on me, I love the outdoors. I would much rather actually just set up in a park, get some sun rays. I'm gonna have a big sign that says um, raising money for cancer, something along that line, which might just
yeah.
that's that just says raising money for cancer. It's kind of interesting. I wanted to kind of
Yeah.
leave it vague. And so that'll get maybe some foot traffic in the parks. And then of course, social media is a amazing tool where that's how thousands of people found me on the side of the highway. So just gonna see what happens. I mean, just sometimes it's better to just put it up in the universe's hands. And yeah, and I just kind of like having it in my control too. Like I'm not reliant on a business owner. Maybe he wants me to leave at 6 and I wanted to be up till 8. So I like I ended up doing that. And then of course, there is a few couple local businesses who were actually reaching out and happy. They're like, oh my gosh, like this will be so fun, so cool. So those ones I will be going to, but mostly it's just going to be outdoor in parks. And
Yeah.
the last thing I'll say about that, the only issue I'll run into is I don't have permits for for being a vendor
Oh.
in these parks. But
Oh.
I
Okay.
almost think, like, let's just say I'm in a park, a Cinnabon Park in Winnipeg, and the park patrol comes by and he's like, "Do you have permits to be here?" I do actually have a registered business, so I'm not like selling anything illegally, but I
Right.
wouldn't have the park's permission, even though it's a public park. They're
Mm,
still owned by their own, like, they're still governed and managed.
yes.
So if I do get kicked out, I'll probably just with TikTok Live or, it's so powerful. Someone I guarantee in the area would be like, just go there, go here next. So I'm kind of just gonna go off that, like kind
Yep.
of like an outlaw for cancer research, just the same as the Cross Canada Marathon. The Terry Fox Foundation did not want to work with me because I was so loose. Like they were like, if you want to work with us, you need highway permits, you need to do this, you need to do that.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
was just like, you know what? I'm not going to get permits to be on the side of the highway. I'm just going to go for it and I'll give you the money after and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the way I roll. And so, yeah, Sunday I leave, and then Tuesday it begins, which brings us to next Tuesday, which that's why
Yeah.
that episode's going to be up in the air. But with
Yeah.
hearing Wendy being open to a 5:30 recording session, I mean, I'd be all for it to jump into one if it's like
Yeah.
9 or 10 for me, and I'm all set
Yeah.
up. It's about 2 hours from Whitburn to St. John's, maybe an hour and a half, or even an hour. So if I spend the night at Keith's and then drive into the city where my venue's supposed to be, um,
Mm,
for like 10 or 11, we'll have an hour before I
yeah.
really start. So who knows? Maybe next Tuesday we will have an episode.
Yeah, we'll just take it as it goes, right? Your timing, my timing. We can be flexible with it. That'd be great. I mean, it's too bad some of those businesses don't also see the other side of like, well, it is also bringing people into your store at the same time. Just so you know, like, it drives me as much as I love my Save On. Everybody knows how much I love the Save On down the street. There is always somebody at the exit door asking for something.
Mm.
Is it like I'm selling these calendars, just whatever, always, 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 always. And it's like, oh, that's too much. That's too much. And it's like a grocery store. You would think a bookstore or, even like a library or something. I
Coffee
mean, I know
shops
it's a
for
little
other
bit to
ones
try.
too. Coffee,
Yeah.
but I think what it is, it's like they have lots of business already, and
Mm,
they don't value. I guess they don't value that extra PR and maybe the extra few customers. It's just
yeah.
things are working for me over here, and I don't really know who you are, and I'm just gonna keep living it's easier to say no in those
Yes.
situations. So it is what it is. I don't have any offense to it. Like it is what it is. And I'm sure if I really wanted to, like, find a business in every city, I probably could have. But and it just kind of turned me off the idea when it wasn't clicking as much
Yeah.
as I thought it could. So like I don't want to. I'm never the guy to like force something. I
Right.
feel like things fall into place. I mean, as long as you're still working in the direction of it and you just kind of follow the flow of it,
Yeah.
always seems to work out better in the long run.
Yeah, and I think, as you find the parks and stuff, the people that are following you and your journey and stuff, they can spit out, right? Even if they're part of like their own neighborhood's Facebook page, they can spit that out in the community page. Hey, today this is happening. Like, yeah, it's sort of relying on the people that are supporting you as well to sort of like bring that information down. Make sure you shout it out, and then everybody else just down the ladder. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's the cool thing with Canada. There's what, 35 to 50 million people here. So many different people with so many different walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was so cool because I'm always just thinking about whatever. And I was just kind of looking at all the different cross Canada journeys this year. And it was kind of interesting to me because for my journey, compared to, let's say, there's this other guy, Ryan, and Ryan, his viewers seem to be more athletes and runners and people like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so he's getting
Okay.
a lot of support, and it's amazing from athletes. Whereas I felt on my journey, it was just more so just the everyday person who's been affected by cancer, and our people seemed more like just people who were just kind and genuine and just want to be a part of a like
Yeah.
a good movement. So it's just interesting to see like 35 different million people. There's so many people out of that 35 million that might go to this cause, some might go to this cause, but as long as you just, I think, be yourself and try to be honest and authentic, the whatever couple thousand in that 35 million might find your message and hopefully come down and support the cause.
Yes, exactly. And that will be, right? Like that's the energy that gets put out and that's what will come back. So 100%, you're right on that. I think it's, whatever our intention that we put out. And you've like put the thought, you're sort of easygoing with what could happen and maybe I just go here or if I gotta move. And that sort of helps, right? You're not like bullheaded and no, it's going to be here and it has to be this. So yeah, I think that's gonna totally work in your favor and be fantastic. And then because you've posted like the days you're stopping in certain cities, right? Like on your
Mhm.
that's still yeah. So if anybody who's watching hasn't seen that, it's on your TikTok, right? And your Instagram if people want to see what
Everywhere.
dates.
Yeah. So, and there's going to be probably by the end of the week, my website's going to be updated with
Okay.
everything there. So on my website, it says current project and it just talks about the book. In that, it's going to say book tour instead. And there's going to be basically every city where it's going to be, the times I'll be there. And
Mm.
yeah, then we're just going to go for it. I think it's cool with the opportunity to get booted from some of these parks because it builds into the adventure where it's like you're kind of overcoming the adversity where it's like, well, they don't want us to raise money for cancer, so now we got to keep pushing and keep working for
Gives you that opportunity. Well, and they build it and they will come spirit. If you're looking for Pascal, just when you get to Quebec, just like set up on the side of the highway and she will come.
them. Oh, God. I don't know. It would be cool to get a run in with Pascal just to see. I would love a second opinion on what she thought from the whole thing to now. Like, did she follow the journey? Did she see me finished? Was
Yeah.
I just a one-time thought? Who knows?
Oh man. Poor Pascal. I love it. I love it. Okay, and then circling back to the baby shower, I watched it. It was super fantastic. It is so wild how things change over time. Like even just from when Spencer was a baby, watching that and being like, "Oh my God, they make that now." Just that would have been handy back then. So what, like, not a favorite, but what was your most like surprising open for like, wow, they make this? I can't wait. This is cool. Is there something that like stood out to you that was like, holy man?
Well, one was a given, which is the motorcycle. I thought
You're
that was
right.
super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever spend the money myself. Just that's more of like a want than a need. So it's just like
Yes.
I was super grateful
Hmm.
to get that one, and that one was super cool. Um, but like I just and the other one is like we got this baby swing. I don't know if they existed in your day, but you set it up and it's like electronic and it like will rock the baby back and forth in like a swing itself. So that one was pretty cool and just like not I don't know about like they make that now because I don't know
Oh,
what they used to have for babies
yeah.
personally. But I was just in disbelief when like someone got us a crib and like that wasn't cheap. So it's just like those things really shocked me when people like one person spent like probably close to $1,000 on her baby, and it's just like we are so grateful. Like I don't even know, like it just feels you almost feel guilty because it's like how do I repay you? And these people will say, well, you've already repaid me from the work you're doing. And it's like, well, I'm not doing this work for really excess. I'm just doing this work because I'm passionate about it. And I'm just lucky that it's helped me get by. But yeah, it's just like when people are just that generous, you almost like feel bad. I don't know, like so
Yeah.
those people, it's just amazing. Like I can't be more grateful and I can't wait to give those people big hugs. But
Yeah.
those things just never cease to amaze me. And hopefully one day I'll be in the position where I can do that for individual people. Right now it's um
Yeah.
just for one individual cause, which is cancer, and I'm gonna keep doing that. But yeah, it's just unbelievable. It was like you
That's
saw
awesome.
it was like 45 boxes and yeah, like it's just yeah, one more thing I'll say about it is I never get anything for myself. This is the same shirt I had from last year on my run. Like I don't buy anything for myself. I don't feel like I
Yeah.
need anything for myself other than like food.
Yep.
So it's just so nice to have something for my baby. Like I would spoil my
Yeah.
baby or I would get anything for Bales, but so it's just nice to see my family and my team getting a lot of stuff that'll benefit them greatly.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what, like people's way of showing the support, right? And like you said, even if it makes you sort of feel bad, the people that are showing that that love, that's how they sort of do that. Maybe their love language is gift giving. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
their way of. So yeah, the swing is a good one. That was, I think everything was battery operated. Jeez, when Spencer was little,
Okay.
whatever it was, but that swing, my aunt, it was a gift from my aunt, and it plugged into.
Oh
Oh
no.
my God, that was my favorite part of it because I was like, we are going to keep Energizer going. Like, just everything's freaking battery back then. Maybe not so much anymore. But I was like, I think we're going to use this swing a lot. Like, Spencer was colicky, and the swing
Okay.
helped. But I was so thankful that thing plugged into the wall. Phew, no batteries. Just,
That's what I've learned recently. Colicky means gassy, right?
yeah,
So the swing you find would help his belly.
yes. It
Okay.
was one of the only things that, for a little while, it was one of the only things. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't there like a water they give to babies? Like, or is that a whole other thing? Colicky water, I think I've heard maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of those types of things out there. I know there was drops that were recommended to us at some point. Um, there was a few things. Because that Spencer's allergy hit so fast, like at that whatever 9 months of with the barley cereal, part of it might have been, that allergy sort of happening. Like obviously you've got a sensitive tummy to begin with, right? And so part of it might have been that, but there is a lot of little there'll be lots of tips and tricks and ideas for colicky. There's like, if you end up using formula instead or whatever, there's some for colicky, there's some with less iron. That was what one thing at one point they were like, what's the amount of iron in the use less iron?
Yeah, and well, Wendy, we'll definitely be leaning on everyone for tips because I heard I was a colicky baby too. So I'm sure our baby will be as well. Part of
Well, no,
babyhood.
that's good. It was so super fun to watch. That was uh an awesome time. And yeah, it is great to be in the chat even and see all those names, and it's like the good old days. We're all here
Right.
supporting, and there's about to be this journey again, and here we go. Super fun. I love it.
And that was the thing. I gave kind of like a preface before where I was like, because like I said, with 35 million people in North America, there's 500 million. That's kind of the way I look at things.
Yeah,
And when you're on TikTok, and anyone across North America has access to TikTok, so anyone can scroll by and see your content and make a comment on it or whatever, right?
yeah,
So, but then let's say out of that 500 million people, there's maybe couple hundred that are very in the community, and then maybe a couple thousand that enjoy everything that's going on, but they're not as like
yeah.
in the community, which is fine too. And so I kind of gave like a preface at the start, like these kinds of live streams typically bring in more people. Just
Yep.
I don't know what it is, but I
Mhm.
think people like unboxings or whatever it is, just the baby in
Yeah.
general, whatever brought them in. But
Yeah.
once you start getting more people in your thing, the TikTok will push it out to more people. So I
Right.
gave a whole preface like this today. Like typically I can take hate comments and just kind of try and rejig them with love, like, oh, like so sorry that you had to, that you feel so bad that you have to be that negative, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here for you, buddy. I don't really take offense to
Yeah.
people's hate. But since we were opening boxes and we were didn't really have the camera in front, like the chat in front of me, Bales kind of had it to the side, and
Right.
Bales never really goes on the camera. So
Mm.
all that to say, I knew there was going to be potentially some rude comments. So I made Kimmy a mod before we started, and I was just like, if anyone says anything rude, today is not the day where I'm
Yep.
gonna deal with it. Just block, mute it. Don't even let it sit there for a second.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I heard there was only like one comment that needed to be blocked. From the
No.
entire 3 hours where 20,000 people, there was only one rude comment. And it was something along the lines of, I don't even think it was that rude. It was just kind of intrusive, where it was like, so he got her pregnant right away. Something
Oh,
along the lines of like, this means he got her pregnant immediately, or something like trying to like tell us, which, sure. But I think some people forget that Bales and I talked on the phone for like 6 months for like
yep.
hours and hours and hours. So when you remove
Hmm.
the physicality of a relationship and you're just
Yeah.
speaking on the phone, like, I mean, at that
Mm.
point we knew each other, everything about each other, like everything. We talked for so long, so it honestly
Yep.
felt like we had been together and longer than that, and that we will be together forever, because we just connected so much on a
Yeah.
personal level, and there was no like like lust or something like that to kind of like,
Right.
oh well, I love this person, and then there's not much talking because you're just too
Yeah.
busy, kissing each other or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the only comment that ended up getting blocked out of the entire live. So yeah, I mean that gives me hope for humanity too.
Yes. Right. That is good if there was only the one. And it's good to like hear that feedback too, right? Like people need to like really reel it in and calm down. You're spending the extra time to leave that hate comment for just, sort of no reason.
Well,
Um,
no, but that's just the thing. Like I said, the 500 million people, you're gonna have one weirdo who's at home scrolling by, and he's just probably leaving a rude comment in every single person's
yeah,
live or video, and it's just, it is what it is when entire North America
yeah,
has access to what you're doing. Someone is gonna have something to say. But
yeah,
yeah, it was awesome to see there was nothing negative, nothing rude, so much positivity, so much love, and um yeah, it was just awesome. I was just trying to be myself, and I was just so grateful and appreciative. I'd never seen so many of those items, so I was like, Bale's like, what is this for? And it was a lot of fun.
the I was like, oh my God, I don't think we still have it. You got such joy out of those fabric books.
Oh, yeah.
So Cars was huge when Spencer was a baby, like little. He had a Cars fabric book that was also a pillow. So
What?
it was big, right? And it like was the main story just shortened in like some pages and they were all fabric. And then like the back page of the book was just this big pillow. And then you could close the pages and Velcro it shut.
Does it
I
still
was
have
like,
it?
I don't, I don't, I don't think so. I'd have to look. Like it took me a while to minimize that stuff. I'm like, I don't want to get rid of that. There's some clothes that he's grown out of that I just won't. And for some reason, out of all the things, I can't let the baby swing go. That's still
Yeah.
in the crawl space. Everything else is gone, but the baby swing. So I could look and see if it still exists. But when you got all excited about it, I was like, I've got to tell him about the book pillow.
No, I was gonna say if you still had it, send it our way.
Yeah.
We want to get our baby into Cars.
Oh my God. Well, good timing because like isn't Cars 4 coming out like in 20 either
Maybe
24 or 25?
Pixar just they do it right.
Right? I'm really excited about Inside Out 2. Have you seen the first one?
No, this new school?
Well, Inside Out is 6 years old.
Okay.
Maybe how long ago did that come out? And it's just they're all the emotions. It's a movie about with all the emotions. There's like
Uh,
happy and fear and all that. And it's like a junior high school girl
yeah,
and the emotions are inside her and things like that. So now Inside Out 2, they've added new emotions because she's a teenager. So now there's like embarrassment
okay.
and anxiety and like the anxiety's hair is all like it's so fun. I can't wait. Anyway,
Yeah, I've seen this everywhere. But I've never seen it. Must be, yeah. Reminded
to
me when
watch
you were
it.
talking about, is it Soul? Have you seen Soul?
Yes.
Yes, I feel like that one you would like that one too.
That is a very beautiful one.
It's a
I
deep
do.
one.
It
Yeah.
is. It's gonna be. I think there's Pixar's got a few coming out that I think are gonna be fantastic. But yeah, good timing because it'll sort of bring the Cars sort of franchise back up. So good timing.
It is good timing. I mean, Disney and Pixar, what they've done for kids, if you really think about it, there's some deep meaning and messaging in all the movies, and they pack it into like a very enjoyable,
Mm.
kid-friendly, digestible way. Like we're gonna be all Disney, all Pixar here. So much to learn through all that.
Even their shorts before the movie that come out, the little short movies that they have. Whew, like some of them are. There is one, and I don't remember what movie it's before. Maybe it's Up. Maybe it's at the beginning of Up. All about a little sandpiper on the beach. Oh my God, do I squeal watching that thing, even though I know it's coming. And it's like a baby sandpiper, and his mom's trying to teach him to like look for the clams under the water when the wave comes. Because when the wave comes, they come out of the sand a little bit, but the wave scares him. And he just, the running in the back and forth of this little sandpiper. I just, oh man, I'm such a kid, but I love it. I can't remember what that one's called, but just YouTube, like Pixar Sandpiper short. You'll find I just love it.
I'll have to check that one out after this. But yeah, like you're not such a kid because it's honestly enjoyable for adults too.
Yeah.
It's so cool, like what they've done, and so many years later, they're just doing it better now. Like
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I still listen to Disney songs just
Oh,
in my own free time, just because, like, gosh, they're so good.
they are. There's some really awesome playlists out there. Like, and I remember, like Spencer, the TV in his room is a whatever the brand is. I don't remember, but it has like a screensaver, and there's like a Disney specific one, so it can be like the palace or the fireplace from Frozen. When I discovered that, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm never leaving your room." I'm like playing with them all. He's like, "Good God!" Yeah,
So. What would be your top three Disney movies?
Well, I got to go a little old school. Little Mermaid has always held huge, huge place in my heart. Always, always love Little Mermaid. Aladdin, the original Aladdin.
Okay,
The
wow.
VHS is like worn. VHS. I'm aging myself. I do have it on DVD too, but I know those are old school, but they're just so good. It'll be hard to do three, but
Mm.
in the newer ones, like I said, I like that concept of Inside Out, and Cars was really, all. And the first one, of course, is my favorite, but the like concept behind Cars and what they're bringing out with that one really was, and the little characters, like of course, my favorite was uh Guido, the little
Okay. Yeah,
porpoise.
yeah.
Spencer has this tiny, I say Spencer, but it's sitting on my shelf now. Sometimes like a kid book will come with little toys. I have the tiny Guido,
That's
the little
epic.
forklift. I love him.
That's a good keepsake.
Oh yeah. You
Aladdin.
and the knickknacks, same thing. The knickknacks are just everywhere.
What about Aladdin draws you in so much?
Uh, well, back then, most likely was the humor of the genie and Robin Williams. Like, geez, he was
Mm,
my favorite. Um, and then just like the like kind-heartedness of Aladdin. Um, but the genie really was nobody else. Robin Williams just nailed,
yeah,
as he did everything, nailed it.
right. The VHS days. I was in the VHS days too, so that's not
And
too
like
long ago.
the music in it was peppy, like very
Mhm.
peppy. Um, yeah, geez, yeah, yeah, there was a lot of that one. I haven't seen the remake, mostly just for convenience.
Mhm.
But part of me is, and even the remake of Little Mermaid, part of me is like, I know with everything's going live action, but a little apprehensive too. I'm like, but no,
I know. Sometimes like don't fix what wasn't broken.
right? I know. Yeah, it's sort of that. Um, so one other thing from this week that I wanted to like, I'm sure people have seen it because it's scrolling past like my reels and TikTok. But one other thing I was sort of reminded about this week, with some of the stuff we have going on, is the making sure that you're reaching out when you need to. So I don't know if you've seen the video go by. I believe the guy's name is Simon Sinek, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Oh
And
yeah.
yes, he refers to that story about a friend going through something, and um, the friend tells him about an article that they read saying that you really only need like 8 minutes from a friend to hold space with you to start to feel better. So then they came up with this thing. They just text each other, "Hey, you got 8 minutes?" And it seems to sort of become, I'm seeing that video more and more, different versions of it more and more. And I just thought that was, sometimes when I see something like that, I'm like, let me just shout that out. It's like, just let's just spread that a little more. Like, that's a good, and because it was reminding me this week that, maybe there's opportunities to reach out a little more. I thought fitting because it was part of my week. But yeah, just it doesn't take long. Sometimes we might think that,
Hmm.
oh God, this person has to sit with me for hours, and do I have that time? Do they have that time? I don't want to bug them. Um, all you need is that sort of 8 minutes to start to feel.
Yeah. No, Simon Sinek is a great speaker. He's done so many good talks. And this is, gosh, probably just another good one to add to his list. I'm sure, like, I think the mental block is a lot of the times we're not reaching out consistently because, we're so busy in our day to day. And then months, maybe years pass and we haven't reached out. And then you're like, this is going to be like a 2 hour phone call. Do I have 2 hours? But if you just kind of nip that in the butt and then just start these 8 minuters, um, that like, and you do feel better talking to someone even for 8 minutes, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
just another, like I feel like a lot of his stuff or just a lot of this stuff we already know, but sometimes you just need
Yeah.
someone to kind of keep reminding you and pushing you to do it and incorporate it into your life because he's all
Mm,
about positivity and
yeah.
mindfulness. And I think the big one I learned about him was the his talk on the big why, like your why in life, and
Hmm.
uh, that one was really good. But yeah, I like I'm sure we're all guilty. There's so many people in my phone book where it's like, oh gosh, like I feel so bad. I haven't reached out in so long, but just now's not a good time.
Yeah.
That's not a good way to be because we always have the time. We don't want to make it because I mean, it's life is hard in the day to day, and then when we get our
Yeah.
time to decompress, we want that time to decompress.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a battle.
And maybe that your full thing isn't solved in the 8 minutes, but it's a start. And then you're like, okay, so I have stepped out of that meeting. I'm going to call you after work. Like it's a start. It's something. None of the versions of the video I've seen, I don't think he elaborates on. But one of the most important things I think he says in it is he says that he like goes to see the friend and they're really struggling and he's hearing all about their struggle and he's mad because he's like, why didn't you say something? Like, why didn't you reach out? I'm here. And the person's like, oh, well, I did reach out. Like, and so he's like, oh, I look on my phone. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, well, you sent me here. Hey, want to have dinner? And they were like, well, that was me reaching out. And he's like, oh, how am I supposed to know that's any different than when you wanted to have dinner last month? So what's important is the like, uh, yeah, you're reaching out by maybe that, but saying, okay, I really need some time. Like
Hmm.
I'm reaching out because I need something or I need just an ear or whatever. And so that's, I think, why he went to they just text each other, got 8 minutes. So, yeah,
Most of us, hopefully, do have those people in our lives, but
yep,
then it's like most of us, we wait until the ship is sinking before we make that call, or, we're too embarrassed to be
yep,
vulnerable about what's really going on in our lives. But
yep,
like the truth is, at the end of the day, is everyone's going through the same stuff, and like, everyone's fighting every single day to get by, make it through, and figure out
yep,
life. And like I feel like a lot of the times it's like the quote, "Fake it till you make it."
mhm,
Everyone's just kind of faking it till they make it, but we're all human beings. We're all made up of the same stuff, and we all
yep,
think the same way. So you see people, and that's the other thing with the internet is you see so many accounts like counts of people doing so good that you think you're the only one out there suffering or struggling,
yep,
whereas most of the people, even the people who are portraying their life as perfect, are also struggling. They just don't portray that.
yeah, yeah. It's a thing, and the more you do it, the more you maybe sort of, will get used to it. That reach out, and you'll sort of get to know. Um, it just maybe is the podcast I've been listening to this week or not. But there was just one other thing that I wanted to like tell you about. I just thought it was kind of neat on the verge of like talking about community and you about to go back out into your community and the sort of reach that you've had and the connections that people have made with one another. I was listening to a podcast. Now, I've written some down so I don't get it wrong because I don't know a lot about the topics at all. But I just thought it was so neat that I'm like, I got to share. So there was a woman named Rabbi Sharon Brous who was speaking in this podcast, and she was talking about a pilgrimage festival that is from like um 1800 years ago, long time. And it's sort of like a ritual, um, and it comes from like ancient Jewish law kind of thing. And the point of it is, what would happen is people would come to Jerusalem from like all over the land, and they'd sort of ascend to Jerusalem, the steps of the temple, and the Temple Mount, and then they'd go through an arch and sort of like enter the temple. Hundreds of thousands of people, and they would all turn to the right. and do a circle around the entire temple and exit out the courtyard. But if you were someone who was heartbroken at that time, for whatever reason, loss, grief, or just something with love, or watching someone go through something, whatever it is, you would turn to the left. And then you would be passing those hundreds of thousands of people. And all of them had to sort of stop and ask in their language. I won't remember exactly what she said, but it's translated to, "What happened to you?" And you answer, and the person offers you a prayer. Like that, hundreds of thousands of people. So whoever went in and turned left is getting that sort of support and that blessing as they go past and then continue on their way. And it's sort of an important reminder that sort of sorrow and sadness or depression, grief, whatever it is, sometimes it can make us retreat. Um, when we sort of need to be stepping into community instead of away from it. And that's just an example from so long ago. Like when she was talking about it, just the fact that it always blows me away. I know there's studies and there's school out there, people who study this from so long ago, but because that's not my world, whenever I hear a story about it, I'm always like, wow, like, how do you know that that happened 1800 years ago? Well, we know because people study it, right? And I don't get out, obviously, but so when I hear something like that, I always think it's pretty fantastic. So that to me sort of like stood out, because maybe we feel like we're going to be a burden on someone, and maybe we feel like the person won't want to like face the pain and deal with it, uh, because maybe it burdens them. Um, but it just sort of says that you can't, I sort of interpret it as, you don't sort of retreat when you're hurting. You have to step closer into the community and the people who are there to help you. You know, if they don't retreat either, we're sort of stepping towards each other. So it's like on both sides of the coin, the community rule is, you know, turn towards each other to sort of help, the obligations sort of on both sides. And again, that's way back then when things were maybe looked at a little bit differently. I'm sure over time people have sort of gone into their, no, I just have to take care of my yard corners. But back then,
Mhm.
so when you hear something from way back then of that connection and that thought of community, I was just like, wow. When I heard that, I was like, that's something I definitely want to bring up. And I just think it's such amazing timing for you about to step back out into this community that you've gathered. And I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful ceremony that happened so long ago. You can visualize it, right? I'm a visual
Oh
person. I
gosh.
can visualize hundreds of thousands of people turning right, and I can visualize maybe just two or three going left. And, you know, I thought it was pretty beautiful.
Well, that's the thing. Like our society has become so like individualistic to the
Yep.
point where all of those common practices back in the day are so lost.
Yeah.
And with like the rise of science and technology,
Mm-hmm.
people leaning away from religion for their own reasons, but at the
Yep.
core of religion, like those that stuff, I feel like maybe not that pilgrimage and the
Right.
hundreds of thousands of people, but the places where they gather and have their communities, like they still practice this stuff to this very day. And there's so
Yeah.
many people that could probably do with getting in that left line because they just hold it all in, and then
Yeah.
it's decades of trauma that builds on top of each other. Um, yeah, no, that's amazing. And it's almost like, yeah, it's it would be so cool to be in so many different times because obviously we're in the best time to live ever,
Mm-hmm.
just with access to everything and how
Mm-hmm.
modern everything is. Like even if it would be cool to live in like the Renaissance era, it probably isn't very
Yeah.
effective because you're not gonna have baths, not much food. There's a
Yeah.
chance your town is raided and pillaged. So
Yeah.
there's this is the best time more than ever, but it's just so cool to think that the practices of religion are really what
Mm-hmm.
brought our whole entire world of what it is to this point 2024 years later. And You could
Yeah.
like that pilgrimage is just one great example of
Hmm.
just like what some of these religions preach. And that's just I
Yeah.
think whether you're religious or not, looking into what some of these things preached on how to live your life to be
Hmm.
like in less of a hell and more of a heaven on earth.
Yeah.
I think they're still effective to this day. I just think there's such a negativity around religion now for some reason.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like there's a shift now where the world kind of felt godless for a while. And
Mm.
people were like, you know what, this just doesn't sit right with me, where everyone's just kind of doing whatever the hell they want. And it's all kind
Yeah.
of crumbling down into a degenerate
Yeah.
cesspool of a world. And I think people are slowly finding their way back into religion and God, and they're like, you know what, that side of life just isn't for me for some reason. It doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't, hit the spots it needs to. And then they're finding the church, whatever church it could be,
Yeah.
Islam, Judaism,
Mm.
Christianity, whatever they find. And then they go and they start practicing the teachings of these ancient religions. And then they start finding their mind is clearing up and they're more positive and feeling better. So, no, absolutely. That would have been a sight to see and something to feel for sure back in the day there.
Yeah, like to be a fly on the wall in that on that temple. Like you can just, like I said, I'm a visual person, so you can just visualize that happening, and it's like, wow, like just wild. And the thing is, you can take any whatever you take from that, whatever beauty you find in that, you can, sort of apply in today's sort of day and age too, right? Like it sort of takes courage on both parts to face someone's pain, to discuss your pain when you're hurting, and just sort of show up to do that and say the thing that caused, the current broken heart and what you might need from someone. And it just, when you do that, it also helps other people learn from you as you walk through sorrow. It's sort of an example. And it doesn't have to be anything huge, even if it's just, I'm worried about my son, or, just, yeah, that little reach out. I thought it was, when I was listening to that going like, wow.
So, what do you think though, where let let me try and formulate this.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you want if you're hurting, let's just say whatever, you're hurting for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
it does feel good. Like sometimes it takes a week where you're nonstop talking about it, but then after
Hmm.
that week it's left your body, it's over with because you talked about it, talked about it, talked about it. There's nothing left to say other than
Right.
just move on now. But then what would you say towards like, so let's say you go to work and just even at work something bothered you, but every day you go to work something bothers you and then you come home. Is that something you think you should keep in, or is it important to vent after like a work day where you might deal with you worked in customer service yourself. After like what do you find? Is it productive to the point where after every shift you're venting about a couple different interactions you had? Or is that best left for when it's really necessary? Like what do you think about that? Because
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I definitely, I am guilty of doing that in those customer service days for sure, the over and over. Um, but I know that that same over and over was because nothing changed. I wasn't changing how I looked at it. I wasn't doing any homework. My own inner homework. I was just like, people suck. What is wrong with you? I wouldn't do that. And I was letting it be carried. Um, I think it can be productive if you're examining it when you do it. Okay, why did it bother me? This happened yesterday and I was just as mad. Like, what is, if you're trying to break it down and change your way around it, it can sort of be productive because you kind of got to go through it to figure out the other side, right? But if you're I'm sure it can be tiring. It's got to be tiring for yourself and maybe the people around you if it's a constant same old. Like, holy crap! Like I said, that one friend of mine was like, "So Wendy, you're a little jaded. What's up?" Like, so
Yeah.
I think if you're trying to experiment and figure out why, it can be handy in that way because yeah, maybe you're gonna unpack some different things, even though it was the same thing every day that made you mad. As you unpack it, it sort of opens the door for more to show up. So I think it can be handy in that way. But I mean, I think we all know the people that have like the same, you just know they're going to come home and okay, well, let them vent for 5 minutes. Keeping it in isn't good either. So
Yeah.
that one's kind of a hard one. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a level, like I think there's menial, like I said, like if I worked at the care home, right? And I'll have two examples. I'll use my example and then another person's example. I typically would go to the care home. I knew maybe, oh, I might get this nurse today that I don't really get along with, and then it's just gonna be a battle all day. Uh, or and then maybe this family member I'm expecting to come in who you got to kind of walk on eggshells around, and then maybe they're berating this person or that person, and then
Mm,
obviously after a day like that, you'd want to go home and be like, oh, like this person never shuts up, they never even care about the resident or this or that. I just found for me, just came to a point where that stuff just became menial. Like to me, it was
mm,
just like, it's a part of the gig, you just do it. For me, it was just kind of like when I left those doors, I didn't think about that place till I walked back in it. So none of the interpersonal issues that were going on within the facility, or I never took that home with me. But I'll give the other example now. I had a coworker who we did the same job, but we were on different floors. And so we had the same kind of day-to-day struggles trying to work with the team,
yeah.
and family and everything that comes along with it. And she would go home, and she had no longer with this boyfriend, but she would go home and basically need to like vent about this nurse, vent about this healthcare aide, this family member, this resident. And her boyfriend at the time was like, I need you to stop coming home and venting to me about your work because it's making me negative. And he just couldn't stand to sit there and listen every night to the same issues, just retold in a different way.
Okay.
And I probably would sit there and listen. I wouldn't be straight up and be
Mm,
like, listen, don't tell me things like they're supposed to be partners and kind of, you know, there for each other
yeah.
to the very end. There might have been a more constructive way to come about that. But yeah, like I don't know. I was pretty good at being able to leave things at the door, just things weren't worth my time, or
Right.
the saying like living rent free in your head. I just
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anyone living rent free in my head, so I try to just let
Right.
things go and see it as just like some of these nurses, this I always categorize it this way. This nurse has been coming to this facility for 40 years, doing this pretty much the same thing every day, looking after the same people, hearing the same problems. And like you said, that's gonna make you jaded. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like just the way I approach things, I found a way to take those jaded people and befriend them and try to make
Yes.
them smile and laugh too. So
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't, I don't know, it's just for me it's so hard to dwell and live in that negativity. I'm always looking for a silver lining or how to turn things around. So when I got trained at the facility, um this guy was like, this nurse, she's rude, she's mean, this and that.
Okay.
So when I first took over, I was almost like took his attitude with me where I'm like,
Yeah.
you gotta be firm and like advocate for your residents and this and that. But then as I
Yeah.
learned, instead of like, you can actually work with these jaded people and befriend them, and they're not actually bad people. They're just kind of sick of the situation.
Yes.
Um, I just,
They have a story.
yeah, a long-winded way to say that within those things you're complaining or venting about, there's got to be ways to approach it in a different way to where you're not getting those outcomes. Like people will be people, but there's probably definitely ways and tools to not take on so much of that from other people.
Exactly. And you sort of delivering a message by if you're venting with somebody and sort of talking through what's bugging you, it sort of is more of inviting of a conversation. If you're just venting the same thing over and over, the person's just Sudoku while they listen. Like it's not a two-person thing, it's a one-person thing. And that's just if they've gotten to the height, like it's like your example with your friend there. But yeah, if you're trying to dig down to the bottom of it, it sort of invites it as more of a conversation and, oh, you know what, that used to happen to me and I try this, or, so yeah, that one can be sort of a tough one because venting is important, but with meaning, you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally get that. That's such a good way to say it. Like, if you're just venting to vent, maybe try to vent to find a productive, like try and vent so you can actually dig to the crux of what actually
Yeah.
is making you come home and have to spend an hour to 2 hours of your evening every night, just like kind of
Hmm.
trauma dumping, before you can actually get into your evening because, everyone affected you so much that day.
Yeah. And
It-
now your work days even longer because you've brought it
mm,
and however long you're bringing it. Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
you're
know.
dreading
Yeah.
going back, and then it's just that's how you get burnt out.
It is. It happens very quickly when you're like that. It says yes, venting is good because it gets it off your chest. But if there isn't a sort of solution or resolution for yourself, you've gotten it off your chest, but it hasn't solved it, so you're still carrying it.
Right? Yeah. And so like that's the thing why I said last week I loved almost being in such a new environment and relearning everything again. It's because I felt like maybe it's just like an anomaly way to live, but I've always just been such a person who it's hard to get me down. It's hard to
Yeah, yeah,
put me in that zone. And
yeah.
so it's been like I want to know what goes on in someone's head where they're really hanging on to those
Mm,
feelings and those emotions that other people kind of dumped onto them. Like I
yeah.
just want to know, like feel what it's like to be in a body and a brain like that because
Mm.
it's so foreign to me to like dwell, maybe is the word. So do you ever have any experience with that, Wendy? And have you like been able to crack out of it?
Well, I think, like as you were saying that, I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, I think, like for me, coming home and complaining in that customer service all the time was, okay, so here's the opportunity to complain about it and tell my story however many times to however many people, because I felt stuck. Wasn't stuck. We all have the capability of, yeah, that means that you're maybe stepping out of a comfort zone and having to get another job, or, oh Lord, that was so handy because I could just walk there and it was close to where I live. All these things that you sort of bring in. Um, but because I felt stuck, it was just a little bit of that, like, oh, so then I got that opportunity to tell the story over and over and over and over because this is what's happening and I'm not going to be able to get out of it. And so I think there's that aspect to it too. You make up those reasons in your head.
And then I guess it does feel good. It's kind of like a cigarette where you get
Hmm.
you get the confirmation bias when you're doing that venting and they'll tell you you're so right, like how is that person such an idiot? And then you
Yeah.
feel good and then you feel seen. They're like they see the suffering I'm
Yes.
going through every day and then it's a drug and then you just want to keep doing it rather than actually changing the situation. But then
Yes.
yeah, you're gonna eventually end up like a broken record
Yeah.
and it's not gonna be good for you or for the person, I guess,
Mm.
continuously having to hear you out. But I don't think that guy, the way he approached my friend, like, don't come home, like, basically told her he dreaded her coming home every day because he knew it wasn't gonna be like happy meetup. It's like, okay, the 2 hours where I have to listen to her talk about this nurse and this resident and this healthcare aide. And I mean, her, and then I became the person she would vent to every day on our breaks. And it is what it is. Like, I'm an open ear, but
Yeah.
she's a very, she's someone who's very self-reflective too and wants to do the work and wants to get better and doesn't want to live in that taking on other people's negativity. So
Yeah.
I haven't worked with her in what, 2, 3 years, 3 years maybe now. We still keep in
Mm.
touch here and there. She actually just hiked to Everest Base Camp. So
Oh my goodness, really?
not the peak, just the base camp. Still a cool
Base, well,
hike.
even to the base camp is still, whew.
It's like a 2 weeker, but yeah, so
Wow.
she's since left that guy and doing well for herself. But she was an
Mm,
interesting example because I think, yeah, like a lot of us, you know, hold on to stuff and then we have our safe person, but it's a
yeah,
domino effect that we don't actually see.
it is. And if you, I was just trying to sort it out in my head as you finished saying it. I- You've got your safe people, and if you know you've got your safe people, great. And if you don't, it's also the personality or where the other person's at in their life, sitting there listening over and over, right? So it is a whole circle because if the other person has their own thing, but they're not somebody who wants to complain all the time, they're holding their own, and now they have to sit there and listen to you. So, it's a lot. Sometimes it can be a thing. So there's a balance to it, I think, and everyone's gonna know who their safe person,
Hmm.
who the safe people are.
Yeah, it's such a venting's a very interesting thing. Like there's definitely such good healthy times where you need to just get it off you. But if it's every day, maybe that's something you should start trying to figure out and really try to figure out. Because I could imagine like, yeah, just living, there's people I know that live in so much like mental and physical pain where they're
Yeah.
just, yeah, they've probably been living crotchety for like 50 years and that's just who they've become.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just like a situation that's so like, you probably need another 50 years of work just to unpack it all. But
Yeah.
um just I think ever since the days I can remember, I was just so happy go lucky. So it's very hard
Mm.
for me to relate, but I just
Yeah.
know how good of a life you can have when you don't have that cloud in your head.
Right. Because I'm sure we've all experienced that whole like listening or watching something and being like, doesn't that bother you? And now you're all extra bothered that it doesn't bother them. So
Right?
yeah, everybody has their like levels, right? And then, that's usually just from a place of, man, I wish I could let that roll off my back. Well, you do the bit of the work, not to say that nothing ever bothers me. No, no, no. But definitely, I think if I were to work in that job with those exact circumstances now, it would be different.
Yeah, right? You do
It
a
would
lot
be different.
differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, like yeah, you can only go forward. So at least now you have the tools if you were ever to do something like that again. But
Yeah. And I mean, also just the know in that circumstance anyways, the know-how of like, yeah, it doesn't really matter what the policy is at Canadian Tire. You can't call me a bitch and not the government, wow, sorry, and management say the customer is always right. No, that can't just happen anymore. So even just the buildup of my own, if you're gonna fire me over that, okay, bye. Like,
right.
so yeah, it all depends, right? It's all connected, right? Because with all of that stuff, are you setting boundaries? Would those things that's happening that annoy you still be happening if you were sending? So yeah, it's just a giant thing.
Life is just that, isn't it? Just a giant mess that you are constantly trying to like
Yeah,
sort through. It's like jewelry that's all tangled up. You're just constantly trying to like untangle it so it makes sense, but it never does.
Untangling it without breaking the chain, right? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of the beauty of it. It doesn't ever need to make sense because I think
Right.
maybe as humans we want to make sense of everything. Like that's why when you're in a dark house and at night and maybe it's a tree scratching against your house, but we don't make sense of it, so we're like, what is that? Like, is that a ghost? Is that an animal? Is that
Mm,
whatever? So our brains are constantly trying to make sense of stuff, but the reality is nothing makes sense. Everyone you encounter is you're going to encounter them off however many years of life experience they've had before you, and
hmm
their opinions and thoughts and ideas are going to be curated from their life experiences, which are way different than yours. And that person's not going to, and then someone who might have a similar life experience, that they might make more sense to you, but still, this is a
Yeah.
fact that we just exist in this world is just crazy. And once you
Yeah.
accept that nothing even makes sense, and life is just better lived where you just kind of let things roll off your chest. Don't let pride and ego get in the way. Just is
Mm,
what it is kind of thing. It's so easy to say, but
yeah. Right. Yeah.
once, like, if you really can, like, live by those mantras, you don't need
Mm,
to, things don't need to make sense. Things just happen. And,
yeah.
you know, we're just spectators of it. It's not happening to us, it's just happening around us, and we get to just watch rather than be
Yeah.
affected. Um, yeah.
And I think some people hang on tighter than others to the need to make sense of concepts, and then
Mm.
it can be harder to put the trust in the universe a little bit. Not to say we shouldn't ever plan or be prepared for anything, but just that general concept of putting a little bit of trust into the universe can be hard if you're hanging on so tight to needing to, yeah, just analyze and get an answer for everything. Yeah, it's a
I
lot of work and a lot of pressure.
it is neat, like we talked about in an earlier episode, but the needing to control rather
Yes.
than you're trying to control every situation and outcome and circumstance. Like the
Yep.
funnest thing about life for me is to just kind of sit back and watch it all happen and just be like,
Yeah.
and obviously you insert yourself and become a part of different situations here and there, but
Right.
never to be attached to an outcome, just kind of there for the ride. Like
Mm,
I, that's kind of me in a nutshell. I like to be there for the ride. I don't need to contribute or like let's say Tammy and Bales need to go run some do whatever. I'll be like, can I just come for the ride? Like I just
yeah.
like to be like it's kind of a good metaphor for
Yeah.
just obviously some things like if it's your domain and it's your thing that you're doing, your
Yeah.
career or your hobby or your passion or whatever, maybe try to have more control over that and work hard and be consistent. But
Yeah.
when it comes to things outside of your domain and outside of anything you really can control, just like I kind of see it as like this is just in the imaginary book of my life. I'm like, well, this will make a cool, fun another chapter, or this
Yeah.
is I almost welcome the unexpected and the hardships because it's like, well, that'll be another cool chapter to my story. What do I want my story at the end of the day to just be so easy and clear cut and
Yes.
never dealt with any adversity and never had to, live?
Yeah. And that's usually when the most adventures happen, when you don't like, it's not necessarily planned, or the unexpected. That's usually when something fun comes along. And so being along for the ride, like you say, that's it. We can plan certain things, like you said, within your realm, and then like everything else you sort of experience and just like a last minute, hey. You'll hear people say that, all the I had this whole thing planned, this whole vacation, but the funnest part was when, like, whatever, just this random guy came up and was like, "Hey, we have two openings on this. Want to go ride some horses on the beach?" That was the funnest thing, even though I had planned the whole vacation. You just hear people say that. The funnest thing that happened was when all of a sudden, yep, all
Literally.
of a sudden,
Yeah, like you can only plan so much, but just gotta
yeah,
go with the flow. So without further ado, Wendy, maybe we should pull up a
Yeah.
card for the week and see what kind of intention or mantra that we might want to carry in for the next 7 days till we meet up next Tuesday.
Yes. Yes, let's see what's gonna lead us out here. Wow. Oh Lord, okay, that one was loud. Okay, so here we go. Spend some time thinking about a part of your life that has yet to be planned out. Look at, geez, as if we were just talking about this. Remind yourself that to have an adventure ahead is a gift and your life is full of possibility.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, spend some time thinking about a part of your life that has yet to be planned out. Um, yeah, like we all, as we age, there's different phases of life. So we all will have a phase that has yet to be planned out. All of us, whether it's elderly, retirement, going in as a teenager, becoming a grown adult, being in your 20s, we're all going to have one of these. That's what I love about this. I mean, a lot of them apply to everybody, but that's what's going to be neat. And sometimes you don't really plan for some of those next phases or think about them. So that's a really good one. The saying at the top of this one is by Lord Byron. I enjoy Lord Byron writing. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods.
Love that. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods to a certain extent. Like,
Yes.
question for you. Are
Yeah.
you someone that's just kind of like, you have your plan for tomorrow, or maybe you have a plan for a month from now, maybe you have your plan for the next 3 years. How far does your vision go when it comes to just like your planning?
Well, I mean, currently not necessarily too far out. When I was younger, I definitely, for some reason, I was like very in my early 20s, maybe even late teens. I was like, I just remember having this sense that I have to have at least my first kid by the time I'm 30. For some reason, there was just something in my head that was like, I can't go past 30. I have no idea why. It wasn't like I want to be married when I'm 24 and like there wasn't all of that. For some reason there was just this that's probably the most out I've planned. But I definitely think I should plan a little bit more this phase of life, because you're getting older and yeah, kids are getting older and what are we doing? And now retirement, what kind of retirement do you want to have? I definitely think I should plan more than I do. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty go with the flow, and I think that can have a positive and negative with it. I think I could stand to plan a little bit more. How about you? Are you well, I mean some stuff you really had to plan, but in general.
I'm typically like a planner. Like I'm always like, how do I want my life to look 3 years from now? What do I want to have accomplished? I'm typically a 3 year guy where, and then I might add on, so next year, like I'll have this book tour done and then I might plan, like I have some ideas for the next literally 2 years. So after
Yep.
this book tour and things start unfolding on the next year, maybe I'll have a third thing that'll come up. But I'm
Yep.
always kind of like, I have a general big plan for like,
Mm.
let's say 3 years, and then I just kind of live every day to day, chipping away at those bigger goals. And it's kind of like a metaphor from the Cross Canada Marathon, where if you have a goal in mind and a plan and you just stick to it, you'll find yourself at your destination eventually. And
Yep.
so yeah, I have some big plans and some big ideas. I don't know if I've even shared on this platform. I've kind of shared in secret with some people, but after the Cross Canada book tour, I want to open my own registered charity in Canada for sick people who are kind of near end of life, mostly cancer, and I want to help um, provide them with maybe an end of life dream they've always wanted to do. So similar to like a make a wish, but
Okay.
more so for for cancer specifically. And the reason for pivoting in that direction is because I might have even talked about this last week, but with the Terry Fox Foundation, they're raising money for cancer research, and then they have the Terry Fox Cancer Research Institute where all their funds go, and the scientists there are doing the work to advance cancer research, and they're making groundbreaking discoveries. The last thing I would want to do is start a charity where now I'm potentially taking dollars away, even though it would all go to the same
Got it.
cause. I don't want to be a direct competitor
Yeah.
to the Terry Fox Foundation. Just as
Mm,
I love Terry and his story and everything he's done for cancer research. So it couldn't be me to go into a space where I'm his direct competitor.
right.
So that's where I have that plan. So 2025, I'm gonna have my baby, and I'm gonna be working on all the legalities around that because it's not easy becoming a registered charity in Canada. And then
Okay.
2026, I want to run across the USA to have the initial seeding for that charity. And then 2026, 2027, I start actually taking these sick people out on what maybe someone wants to go to a WWE match or a
Mm,
Maple Leafs game or whatever their dream is or the person they want to meet.
yeah.
Hopefully, I can make that happen. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of my 3-year plan. And then you live life every day in between. But then at least I know
Yes.
keep up your running, make sure you're contacting the right people to make sure, it's just like you have your goals and then
Yeah.
you can start chipping away at them every day. And then 3 years
Yeah.
from you'll look and you'll be like, wait, how did I do all that? And it's just consistency.
Yeah. If there's a specific goal of something I know I have in mind, I sort of do the same thing. But as far as like a phase where there should be like a few things figured out, I'm not as good with that. But my mind mapping and goal setting and things like that, I've sort of got that going. But yeah, sometimes I'm not the best at like looking too far and really planning on some of those sort of bigger things. But um, yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to both.
Well, and it could just also be a man and a woman difference in a way where
Mm,
um I part of me I feel like a lot, especially because we're so young too, a lot of our family kind of lies on my shoulders. It's not like I can just not do anything and then our family's
right,
provided for. So
right.
um I'm kind of like really I always because I just there's so much feels like
Mm,
on my shoulders. I feel like if it were for Bales, her plan would not be as lucrative as mine, just because she's just kind of like, she's gonna have her plan is probably different. I'm gonna have my baby, and I wonder what her plan would look like. But yeah, different for people who have different, like who are just worried about different
yeah,
um circumstances. Like she's
yeah.
probably
Where
gonna have more
your
of a baby
priority,
plan.
yeah, where your priorities are and what you worry about and what yeah, totally. You've nailed it. That is, and therein lies like the difference with humans. And yeah, just oh Lord, there's so much. Hey, people, we're complicated. We're fantastic, and
Yeah.
own it.
Right? Oh, so much we can get into. Um,
I know. Well, that's why we're only episode 13. Let's just keep.
I know. Next episode, I would love to dive more into what your life looked like raising Spencer. I'm just really curious into the earlier years of the upbringing.
Okay.
Like
Yep.
maybe give us a teaser. Were you ever a stay-at-home mom, or were you out of work?
Um. Yes. Because it was sort of like forced a little bit at the time. You get the year uh parental leave, so I did that, and then he was gonna go to like day home with my friend, and very quickly he was reacting to their dog, which he had been around a lot, because they're friends, like, and we'd been to their house for play dates plenty in his first year of life, but because he was there for so long, like the dander was, and is starting to wheeze pretty fast, like within the first week. So back to the allergist, and they're like, if he stays, it's going to turn into full blown asthma. And I'm like, okay, seriously? He's sort of phased out of the dander bit a little bit, but here, daycare and day home is so freaking expensive. I would have been handing over my paycheck to have someone else raise Spencer in a day home or a daycare with no animals in it. So
Mm.
it was I had only been back to work for a week, and I had to walk in and be like, gotta go.
Yeah, life happens.
Yep.
Mm. So
So great.
this might be like a very like maybe I'll ask this question next actually. If you could, obviously, there's bills to pay, but if you could choose between stay-at-home mom or like career, which one would you feel like you fall into?
Well, I mean, now that Spencer is the age that he is and I've done it, I would say stay at home mom. And I think I definitely would have liked to have stayed home. Um, but if I was like in a career, like if I was like a professional photographer or something and I was doing what lights me up and I was like, oh my God, I miss being at work, maybe it might have been a tiny bit different, but I mean, that pull for motherhood, that you just don't get that time back. You'll never experience, even if I have another kid, I literally won't experience those things again. Your next kid isn't going to walk at the same age, isn't going to have the same personality, literally everything. So I think I'd probably still sort of stick to stay at home mom. If there was a career I was insanely passionate about that I was in, I probably would have tried to find a way to at least half and
Right.
half.
Like obviously I advocate for women in the workplace if they choose to be. I saw such a funny meme the other day where someone was like it was a girl who made the joke, but I can't remember the name of the lady who led the movement for women to work, but she was
Okay.
like if I could go back in time and like stop her from doing that, I would, because like
Oh,
basically making the joke like they just wanted to be a stay-at-home like wife and mom and
mm,
parents rather than this one lady who led this whole rebellion for women to get the right to work. And then it's almost like the joke was they're suffering more now working than not having the right to work.
right.
And
Yeah.
my view is like obviously if a woman wants to work, they should totally have that opportunity. I'm a little more old-fashioned though. It's so much harder in 2024, but if I could, I
Mhm.
would love to be able to support my family where if Bailey wanted to stay home and raise the baby, she has that option. Because my like maybe it's a old fashioned belief system, but I really like the time where let's say the man left the house for 12 hours, put in a really hard day of work, but then he got home and the house was clean and there was a dinner
Mm.
on the oven in the oven, and since
Yeah.
his wife wasn't stressed out about work all day, you come home and she's happy and happy to see you, and then everyone's just living a nice happy cozy quaint life. And that's
I
kind
mean,
of
she
like,
can be stressed out about how her day was at home, though.
no, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
sometimes husband gets home or whoever, and it's like, here you go. Here's the baby. I'm out. Glass of wine in the closet, or whatever it is. Sometimes, right, there isn't that sort of easiness concept, but there is also, phases, right? Like once, I mean, it definitely was easier to have a bit of a part-time job and stuff once Spencer was in school all day, right? As
Mm.
opposed to 2 hour preschool, and you're like, how do I fit anything in? So, if you are lucky enough to be able to have a job that will sort of allow you to do that, just be gone when they are, then you're not missing out, because they're gone anyways at school.
Right.
So not everybody has that luxury. I've been fairly spoiled. I've always said that. I know that. I've been very, very lucky and I'm appreciative for it. But, as they grow up and stuff, you can sort of start to shuffle if you can. But
Mm.
yeah, you just don't sort of get those moments.
And
That's
I
what
want
she,
to clear, I don't think it's easy at all. What I think it is it's very much hard work to keep the house clean, keep the baby
Mhm.
safe, keep them a nice hot meal, figuring out a new recipe, whatever it is every day. But then I think the amazing balance you get when both of those people collide and are really
Yes.
taking the initiative and taking on those tasks, and then when one side has done all theirs and the other side has done all theirs. I just think that makes for
Mm,
very um I mean it's a more modern, or not modern, like old school style of house life. But
mm,
I'm an old school guy. I just feel like from like I don't know when, maybe like the 60s. And obviously there was wife beaters, and I don't want to say I'm going to beat my wife. I feel like people think they want to stay at home um partner, and they think like they add in all the negatives that went along. Oh, you don't
yeah.
believe in women working, or you're a wife beater,
Yeah,
or
there
what.
was a lot of negativity with, yeah.
But that's the cool thing. Like it's almost like the whole narrative is shifting again, where so many people wanted to just progress and progress and progress and progress and break barriers and everything. And I think people are kind of all like taking a pause, and they're like, wait a minute. Like with the meme, like the thing with that meme, it had like a couple million likes, and all the women in the comments were like, I can't believe this lady with no kids and didn't even have an attraction to men made it so the rest of us who want kids and stay at home can't do that. So I was, and I'm not, yeah, I'm just explaining what I saw and what some people feel. And I'm not saying women shouldn't work, but there are a lot of women out there that want to be a mother and stay at home with the kid and do the household chores. Like you want to clean house and all these things, and it's not easy. So,
I
um,
mean, it is a lot because you're also trying to hold your independence, right? And I think as there's more progressing and everything, like you say there, um, sometimes it ends up you have to wear more hats the more things progress and everything, and now you have to hold more things. And now you have to like wear the cape and be the superhero of all of it. So again, there's good and bad with that too. The progression's great, but yeah, it can be it can be an overload.
yeah, well, and maybe I'm a little biased because my mom had four kids and she got to stay home with all of us. And
Mm,
she didn't, I wish I knew her exact age when she went back to school to become a registered nurse, but it was like her late 30s,
yeah.
mid to late 30s. And so obviously maybe once all the kids are out of the house, you're kind of like, well, what now? And you go and find yourself into the world. But my mom would say, those are my favorite days ever, being able to stay home with you guys. And, she just had her routine and loved it. And so clearly, just only from what I've seen, it made her extremely happy and feel fulfilled.
Mm,
So, and yeah, like not every, it's just interesting. I've met some women who really, really wanted a career and get out
mhm.
there and be the boss bitch kind of thing. And
Yep.
then there's other women who are like, you know what, like you go be that. I want to stay at home with my kid. And I really, there's a lot of negativity that surrounds stay-at-home moms these days. Maybe less now, but I felt like there was a phase. And
Yeah, there certainly can be, and there's a lot of people that are like, well, stay at home moms, that's taking us back in time, and there's so much more that you could be, and that's just the people piping that it's coming from their perception and whatever their trauma sort of might be, but everybody's priorities are different, and it just is like Steve would well, he still does, let's be honest. He'd make fun of me for the like amount of pictures that I'd take, and he'd come home every day and go, this is what Spencer did, or videos. But he would have missed them if I hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
I could be like, oh, you should have seen him. He like grabbed the table and stood up. Well, now you have to visualize it. Or do you want to see this video that
Mm-hmm.
I did, that I made for you? You know what I mean? So it's the same kind of thing. Somebody's missing out unless both of you are insanely lucky and you're both stay-at-home parents. Someone is missing out, right? So
Yes.
um yeah, you got to kind of find a way to balance where you want to be at as they grow and change. Maybe there can be part-time work, whatever. You can, it can be a lot, but you maybe sort of can have that version of boss bitch and,
Right.
be home at the same time. It's just so many people squeeze themselves into a box. But again, the society doesn't necessarily make it that easy, and things are so expensive, and living nowadays
Mm-hmm.
is providing a few less choices for people. So it's all again a big vibe.
Right. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, but I don't think it takes people back in the time. I think
Mm,
there's just this huge like new modern feminism wave that kind of swept
mm,
through everything in the last maybe 5, 10 years. And it's almost like when these very progressive times in history come, you either jump on board or you're just considered every terrible name in the book. And it's just kind of interesting to see. Oh, can you hear the bird?
I heard that one. Not always, but I heard that one.
Yeah, he's something's going on, but it's just so interesting to see once kind of the rubble settles from all the progress you're trying to make, and then people are kind of like, some people get left behind, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I kind of liked it back here with these kind of values and lifestyles, and that's why I think it's cool with Bales. I feel like we've found people that have very similar values systems, and yeah, hopefully if I can, like I've already told her she's not gonna, she has her little cleaning gig, of course, so she does clean a
Yeah,
couple of houses every week and does make some income from that, but I've told her no matter what, she's
yeah,
gonna stay home with the baby and I will make it work no matter what, because I want her to get that opportunity and
yeah. That's something she wants to do. Then yeah, and that's all the thing too. Can you make it work in your house? Do you have a supportive partner? Like there's just so many. You really need the older I get, the more I think uh it's almost like when you start dating and you're older. Here's the question here, and it's not just what does your first date look like? It is like, okay, are you going to be good if I do this? Is this going to be good for that? Is this going to be good? Like you got to get down to the brass tacks. So I think if you've got that supportive partner in that way that you feel like you are a team, and so you're like, okay, I want you to have that opportunity because you want to stay home. So I'm going to spend some time making sure I can make that happen. If we have to relook at it in a couple of years because it's not working anymore, we regroup. But
Mhm.
if both parties are willing to help each other give it that go, then halfway there already.
Right? And like you've obviously been married for a while now, but for me, it's just so cool to find someone that you feel like a real team. I've never felt that with anyone else, and just even some of the conversations we've had where it's like, just the fact that I am leaving to do this fundraiser and when I get back, the baby's gonna be due in 2 to 3 weeks. So it's just
Mhm.
like, the teamwork where she's like, I know this is important to you. I know you need to do this because this is what and I want you to go do that. And then there's even conversations like, well, if I go into labor while you're out there, maybe you come home and then after a couple weeks you go back and finish. But just the fact that there's just always teamwork involved and everything. She
Yeah.
thinks about me and I think about her and we both want the best for each other and it's just it's I can't wait to have that for 20 years. I mean, I know
Mhm.
yeah, I'm 26 now and obviously I've had some past relationships, but they've never felt like this one. So I'm just maybe this is what you're kind of wait for all your life.
When you notice a difference, that's a huge thing. Like that time, that notice. And maybe like not to speak on it because I'm not you or Bailey, but you sort of touched on a very good point earlier when you're like the amount of hours that you guys spent together at first was on the phone. There's nothing else to do besides talk and
Mm-hmm.
get to know each other and find out where you're coming from. Yeah, physical stuff is important too, but it didn't start there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, maybe there's something to be said for that too. Some of those big conversations you had to have maybe just flowed naturally while you're on the phone walking for hours on the side of the road because there's nothing else to do, and it sort of builds a strong sort of point. But yeah, if you can feel like you've got good teamwork, because teamwork makes the dream work, that's the most that you can hope for, and that's fantastic that you guys think about each other and you're doing that. I think the longer Steve and I have been together, I definitely notice that and feel that, and we acknowledge it all the time. Especially recently with some of the stuff going on, I am beyond blessed to have the team member in this house that I do.
That's awesome. I love to hear that, Wendy. That is amazing. Especially how do you say 20 years of marriage?
What year is it? Good Lord. 19. What time is it? Where do I live? No. Okay. Yeah, 19. It'll be 19 in,
Wow.
it's 19 this year. Yes.
Nice you can still say that with a smile on your face. That's what we
That,
all dream
yeah.
for.
I mean, the key, I think if you were to ask both of us separately, if we were on a game show where you had to write what you think the other person would say, what the key is, both me and Steve always just, you got to make sure you still make the other person laugh.
Hmm.
That's important, and we still do. So yeah, that's why I
Amazing.
can still giggle about it.
Love that for you guys. And one last thing I will say, and then maybe we'll wrap things up.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the same topic though. With the talking over the phone, let's just say, instead, Bailey and I were in the same bar, or let's say for a night. But
Hmm.
then you're drinking and whatever, and maybe that person's attractive to you and you spend the night together, whatever. And then you keep talking afterwards, but if that kind of and those can completely work. There might be someone listening like, that's how I met my husband, which is like, I'm not saying it can't work, but if
Correct.
you're meeting because you just ended up in the same place and you're drinking, you thought each other were attractive, but then, I don't know, just those can work, but it almost seems like it's going to be a bigger shot in the dark to make something like that work long term than, uh, than just things that start out slower, I would say, where it's more about the connection, the friendship, the relationship, and then
Yes.
both see each other as these amazing people that could do better if you were together, and then hopefully that grows. I just, yeah,
Because you do hear people also say, "Oh Lord, we were best friends for years before and we've been together however long," because they've sort of built that sort of foundation. And yes, stuff can start on a physical thing and work too, but if you're willing to put the work in as the years go by to meet each other at the level and learn about each other and adjust, and you got her you got her made. It's all about patience and
yes,
just, yeah, if you feel like they're a good team member in general, you just build up around that. Those are the things that matter. Sometimes people are like, oh, they have to have this job or
yeah,
whatever, they have to have been
yeah.
raised this, and you just listen to that going, uh-huh,
Hmm.
doesn't matter, but okay, good luck.
But
See
then,
ya.
and then those people end up in their 30s and they're still looking and they're like, well, maybe this impossible checklist might have not been the most valuable checklist to have when looking for a long-term partner. But I mean, that's just the game of life. We all live and we learn and grow. And maybe you might have been with someone like my friend Lisa. She's in her 50s now, and I went traveling with her and her daughter. And so I got to know them very, very well. And she
Yeah.
was telling me there's this one guy that ended up breaking up with her, and this was later in life, and he like they ended up staying friends and whatnot, but he was like telling Lisa that um he wished he never broke up with her. It was his biggest mistake in his life because he just wasn't ready at the time for like that. And it's just but then that guy, I'm sure, learned from his mistakes or whatever it was and grew to the person that became ready for someone. So, there's always learning and growing opportunities even from those situations.
Absolutely. And recognizing that too is half the battle, because sometimes people are just like, forget it, or just like, no, that's just it. It's not, you got to sort of see the opportunity or recognize that, and it'll help you move along, whether it's with that person or not. But yeah, we just got to be open. So many people keep it like tight and closed in. We just got to be open, people.
Right. And one more thing I want to say, because it's just kind of tickled my brain here. Saw this movie, and this guy was like a expeditioner. He would go do these giant expeditions where he would ice climb, and it would take him days or weeks on end to reach his summit. And he ended up passing away in a giant avalanche. And he was with his best friend at the time. And his best friend and the man's wife obviously were grieving together,
Mm-hmm.
but then through the shared grief, they ended up falling in love.
Okay.
I This is just completely random, but I would be, if I was ever with my best friend and I passed away, there is no world where I don't think Bailey or me would ever be like, yeah, go date my best friend. Maybe there is someone listening that did find their partner through that grief, and maybe I'm actually super insensitive to say that. But if I were to ever pass away, I don't think I want my best friend um, to end up with my partner.
I think there's been a few movies along that theme. Like, wasn't Pearl Harbor? Didn't they throw that into the Pearl Harbor movie too? I can see why it might happen.
Yeah.
What I mean, but
Mhm.
when I think about it the same way, I'd be like if I passed away and I'd be like, oh God, I'm not sure I can picture like Steve and my best friend be like, what? Like when you walk it through your head, it definitely is. But that shared grief, you can maybe see how it would happen. But
Yes.
the logistics of it, it's like,
Right.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, I just thought that was funny. Yeah, Steve, if you're listening, yeah, Wendy's best friend is off limits.
Off limits. Same thing, Bailey, if you're listening, Jack's best friend is off limits.
Yeah, imagine just like I wouldn't be here, but you're like watching, scrolling through TikTok, and then you see Rob and Bailey.
I
You're
was
like,
gonna
what?
say, what would your equivalent to that be? Like, yeah, you died in the fire of Marianne and Robin.
Right? Anyways, that'll never happen. Just something funny and light to end it off with.
You bet.
Anyways, guys, thanks for listening to episode 13 of Putting the Field Back in Tuesday. Next week, and for the next 5 to 6 weeks, this background where I post from gonna look much different every time. And potentially 4 weeks from now, Wendy and I might have one of these episodes filmed. We are side by side in the same room. So,
Hot wings.
yes, we're gonna do hot wings. I love it.
That is in the back of my mind. Don't think I'm not gonna be like, all right. Yeah, I am super excited for you. I am super proud of you. You put so much of your time and energy into this, and I know so many people cannot wait to see you and meet you for the first time, perhaps, or give you a hug again. So, good luck with everything. I can't wait to see you again, and I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Wendy. And without further ado, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. See ya. Take care.